I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I think I'm going to title this video Bad News. The game has changed. And this is based on an article that I just read from ZeroHedge.com. And this is, as you can see in the headline, Peter Schiff, the game has changed. And it's not a long article, but it has some very good information in here. All right, that I figured was worth bringing out because as we approach, or as we step into, not even approach, as we step into the year 2023, there have been a lot of warnings and forecasts concerning that year. All right, of recession, and basically the dangerous economics. Look at that, inflation hits 40-year high. you know, but as we read this article, you'll hear why what the Fed is coming out and telling people, which they're going off of, is not going to end them in a good place. All right. Just like what the Fed told people last year did not end them in a good place this year. Right. So, before I read this, I want to read a quick precept in Ezekiel, the 7th chapter, verse 25. This is Ezekiel 7 and 25. It says, "Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none." All right. And pretty much that's what's getting ready to happen. Destruction is coming, and people are going to seek peace when the destruction hits. The thing about it is, you were supposed to seek peace prior to that. But people decided they didn't want to be proactive, and they wanted to spend that time and that grace period doing whatever else they wanted to do. So now the Lord has a judgment, a great judgment that's coming for them, and they're not going to be able to escape. Okay? As it says, they're going to seek peace. Salakia. They're going to seek peace, and there shall be none. So it says, Peter Schiff joined Liz Clayman and Andrew Brenner at Nat Alliance Securities to talk about the December Federal Reserve meeting and the messaging from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Peter said investors need to understand that the game has changed. Inflation isn't going away. And people hate to hear things like this. I'm sure a lot of people hate or have a distasteful opinion of Peter Schiff. Okay, but at the end of the day, you gotta look at all sides, right? You gotta look at what the Fed is saying. You gotta listen to the other sides and look for yourself and see where these where the economy is actually headed for, and not just be blinded by the fact that okay, he is the Federal Reserve chair, so automatically believe whatever he says. Well, he said that inflation wasn't going to be a problem, and well, look at where we're at. So it says Brenner started off the segment by saying that the Fed is awful in its projections, and while it may try to raise rates again, he wants what's that? NYC Uber drivers begin strike after judge blocks pay raises. Oh, there you go. And then they also talking about this migrant crisis. All right, they're pretty much saying I read a little so real quick. I read an article earlier today, a bit of it about this guy Mayor Eric Adams, basically saying that this migrant influx is basically driving NYC and other places to the brink of emergency where they're running out of resources in order to accommodate for it, and that's going to start affecting pretty much everybody. So there's a lot of things going on at once, all right, and it's just like as you look at one fire, another fire gets started, then another one, then another one, then another one. So this place is really circling the drain. But going on, it says here, and while it may try to raise rates again, he wants to see the next CPI number adding. I really think the Fed is well over their skis. Peter noted that Powell said raising rates may cause some pain, but the American consumer would feel more pain if the Fed failed to act and let inflation run out of control. Well, I've got news for the consumer. Inflation is already out of control. The Fed failed to act, In fact, the actions of the Fed created the inflation, and it's going to get a lot worse. And this is something you do need to hear to prepare your mind, at least to, to have some readiness in the mind, because when they say things well, when we say things are going to get worse, first off, average individuals today haven't even experienced, all right, um the worst, the or how conditions were in the past times, and those that have know what it's like. So, and even for those that that did experience, the brunt of it, even for them it's going to be worse. So how much more for those who weren't connected, don't keep up with the news, they don't understand what's going on. They're just going to feel a sudden a change in life for the worse, and it's going to happen very quickly, right? Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Because why is the destruction going to come? Because of their pride and their arrogancy and their wickedness. So it says Powell, and see that think of it like when you have like a UFC match, and then one fighter puts another one in like a hold. They got different types of holds. Usually they have some where like they'll have your arm locked up in this hold or whatnot, and they're waiting for you to tap out. If you don't, they're just gonna keep on going and going and going. This ain't the way the Lord set it up. This isn't one of those where they put you in the hold and when you tap out they let go. No, no, no. There ain't gonna be no letting go this time. The goal ain't for you to tap out. The goal is to break that arm pretty much, and that's what's getting ready to happen. So once people, they haven't even realized they're in that hole just yet, but as they start to feel the pain, they're gonna start tapping. But it's not gonna stop there. Okay, at least not in the Lord's book. So it says here, Powell expressed concern that rising wages in a tight labor market may keep pushing inflation higher. Peter said, rising wages don't cause inflation. Inflation is what's causing wages to rise. Wages are just the price of labor, and prices are going up. Eventually, the Fed is going to stop fighting inflation when the recession gets much worse. And in fact, when it becomes a financial crisis. And that's exactly the goal that they are looking for. Why? Because change comes through crisis. Okay? So it says, Liz said, one second, let's get this shit out of here. All right. So it says, Liz said the Fed has been in a months-long firefight against inflation. Do you not see any improvement in what we have seen when it comes to inflation, at least ticking downward a bit? Peter said, no, you're always going to see an ebb and flow. But in order to really fight inflation, we would not only need much higher rates than the rates we have right now, because rates need to be enough above inflation to encourage savings again. And our savings rate is basically at a record low, and consumer borrowing is at a record high. So that is not helping, but also government spending continues to increase. Budget deficits continue to rise. You're not going to fight inflation unless you get cuts to government spending. So the Fed is sitting here saying, well, we have to raise interest rates in order to fight inflation, but the rates at which, or the rate at which they're increasing these rates, is not nearly enough. In addition to that, it's not just raising rates. You gotta like you just mentioned here, you gotta watch that government spending, because as we're gonna read on later, um, it says a paper published by the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank, which I remember reading that, they were also mentioning how, look, they can't handle inflation by themselves. The government needs to cut down on their spending. Well, good luck getting that to happen, and many other things. So it's many other factors. And then the one factor that they claim to be in control of, which is raising the rates, they ain't even doing that nearly enough. So what they're doing is the bare minimum, making it look like they're doing the best they can, because there's still a state, there's a certain condition, a state of the market, a state of the global economy that they're hoping to reach. There is an actual target. They tell you that the target is getting inflation to 2%, but the real target is getting the world economy to a state of total chaos and collapse. And then they can bring their real solution. The fight inflation and do all this and all that. That's not a solution that they actually care about. That's not really where they're trying to go. Okay, that's just something they tell you. It says the central bank has even conceded this fact in a paper published by the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank. In a nutshell, the authors argue that the Fed can't control inflation alone. U.S. government fiscal policy contributes to inflationary pressure and makes it impossible for the Fed to do its job. So, what's going to happen here if the number of factors that you need in order to be successful at this, you don't have? You're raising rates, which is not it's not like, okay, well, we're just raising rates and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. No, there's a high price that consumers have to pay because these rates are going up, right? But you're doing this and it's not really as effective as you would like it to be because you have other factors that are playing a role in this. So it says trend inflation is fully controlled by the monetary authority only when public debt can be successfully stabilized by credible future fiscal plans. When the fiscal authority is not perceived as fully responsible for covering the existing fiscal imbalances, the private sector expects that inflation will rise to ensure sustainability of national debt. As a result, a large fiscal imbalance combined with a weakening fiscal credibility may lead trend inflation to drift away from the long run target chosen by the monetary authority. Peters said, we're still getting stimulative fiscal policy coming out of Washington, D.C. Everything is screaming more inflation, not less. Brenner countered that the money supply is coming down. We're seeing signs of economic slowdown and price inflation is easing in some sectors. He thinks the Fed is going to back off from where their rate increases are projected to end. Peter said investors need to recognize that the game has changed and is constantly changing, right? They come out and say one thing today. They say, okay, well, we're gonna try to do this, and then while trying to do this, oh, we realize that we also got to take care of this, and then those fires start. And here it is, the world economies is their playground. It says we're going to be living in a high inflation environment for the foreseeable future. Rates are not going back down to zero, but they're still going to be negative in real terms. You have to invest in real businesses that actually have earnings and pay dividends. Well, you got to look at, okay, you got the Federal Reserve, the IMF, yada yada, cool. But you got to look at the top of the pyramid and see what is the direction that the top of the pyramid is going in. What is the mindset that is being discussed at the top of the pyramid? Because that is what trickles on down. And trust me, the Federal Reserve is not at the top of the pyramid. That means that there's somebody they take orders from. So once you understand what is the direction or the mindset of this person or people that are sending these orders down, you'll know exactly where the Fed is trying to go. You'll know what their goal is, and you'll be able to see right through whatever they tell you because you know that they're not going to do what they want over what their bosses tell them. And if their bosses want this economy to be crashed, why would the Fed that works for them turn around and say, no, we're trying to save it? The only reason is damage control, to deceive the people, to keep their guard down as long as possible, to allow them to do what they need to do in order to make their bosses happy. Okay, think of it like that. Peter also emphasized that the decline of the dollar is going to kick into a higher gear when the Fed does stop raising rates because the economy is too weak and the central bank has bigger things to worry about than inflation. During the Fed meeting, Powell did say that the central bank will begin to hike at a slower pace in order to, quote unquote, feel its way forward. Brenner said he thinks Powell realizes he has moved too far too fast. He also said there's a big mistake out there waiting to happen. Oh, it's not a mistake. It's deliberate. Peter said he agrees the Fed is going to ease, but that will be the mistake, or that will be a mistake. It hasn't gone far enough. The problem is it left interest rates too low for too long. It already expanded the money supply so much that we haven't even had enough price increases to catch up with the previous expansion of the money supply. So, even if the money supply is growing more slowly now, it doesn't matter. There is so much inflation already in the pipeline, and the only thing that was keeping our inflation rate lower was the fact that the dollar was rising when everybody thought the Fed would quit hiking. But now that the dollar is falling, that is going to add fuel to the inflation fire. I think it's going to burn a lot hotter in 2023. But the economy is going to cool off even more as inflation heats up. And that is a no win situation for the Fed and for the country, unfortunately. Well, that is the I guess you could say painful reality of things, but that's just the reality of things, right? Now this is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 5, verse 12. It says, "And at that time shall men hope, but nothing obtain. They shall labor, but their ways shall not prosper." And you can also think of Jeremiah 51 and 9, right? 7 on down. It talks about how Babylon is fallen, right? Take balm for her. We would have saved or healed Babylon, but she is not healed. So this is by the hand of a divine power. So it's already set that this place is going down. And what these devils are doing is they're taking advantage and crashing it so they can institute their monetary policy, their new monetary policy, which the Lord is going to allow them to do or get at least to some point with it because it's in the line of prophecy. Okay. Now I remember years ago. Let's see, I think there was something called Agenda 23. Now they call, or maybe it was 21. Agenda 21, not 23. But in any case, now they have. I mean, not now. They've always had these agendas, But now they're openly discussing it. These terms are being thrown out there. NWO, agenda this, Great Reset. They're telling you what they're getting ready to do, or sorry, what they're in the middle of doing. And they know that they can freely do that because guess what? People are still going about like everything is all sweet out here. So you're going to find out, all right? People, you either going to find out the game has changed, you know, by observing and watching and praying, or you're going to find out it has changed when you in there catching hell. In any case, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kudash. And until next time, Shalom.